you've teamed up with what is now the two-time unified world heavyweight champion, Anthony Joshua. I've spoken to Ben about it in a past interview, but to hear it from you yourself, how did the link-up come about?
Yeah, Benjamin tells a nice little story about how it all happened. But basically, you know, AJ saw Benjamin up GB, and off the back of that, he used to message me, and he used to ask me questions. You know, going back 2 years before we started training, he would ask me questions about preparation and about performance and what I thought about this or what I thought about that. And at the time, I just thought it was a great compliment. And I'm sure that he asked because that is part of AJ. You know, he has this amazing curiosity, and he's always looking for a different angle and a new angle. And so I'm sure you know, he would speak with a lot of people. But he liked what Benjamin was doing. He liked the way that we were preparing, you know, from the short videos that we put up on social media and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure who made the call or how it went, and I don't really want to pry into it just in case it was an accident and they decide to take it back. But you know, after he lost, I got a phone call saying, "Would you like to come down and do a little session with AJ?" And you know, I just took it as a great compliment, and I didn't think too much of it. And but he really enjoyed it, and you know, it went from there basically. And they decided to bring on myself and Angel Fernandez to complement the work that Rob was already doing.
Something I was about to ask you, obviously Angel also joining the team there. What are your roles then in the setup now?
It all depends on, I mean, basically we are assistants to Rob, who is the main coach. He's the main driving force. And we're there to complement the work that he does. Sometimes I will just work with AJ on his own, as I'm sure Angel does. Sometimes I'll work in conjunction with Rob, and sometimes all three of us work together. And I mean, a lot of people thought that it couldn't work. A lot of people thought that, you know, how can you have three different people? But I testimony to AJ's character.
Going back to obviously the Ruiz fights, Ben, start off with the first one. I know you wasn't involved, but when you watched that loss for Anthony Joshua in New York, what was your thoughts on it?
You know, it was funny. I didn't stay up to watch the fight. I don't stay up to watch fights. I'm too old. So I was asleep, and my phone was going crazy. My phone was pinging like crazy, and my wife woke me up to tell me off. And I got up and I looked at my phone, and it was full of messages saying, "Oh my gosh, have you seen this?" and "Oh my gosh, have you seen that?" And so I watched AJ that night, maybe 2-3 hours after the fight, and he messaged me back, and he just said, "What were your thoughts?" And I said, "Hey, now isn't the time or the place." You know, but it was I think almost everything that went wrong, almost everything that could have went wrong seemed to have went wrong on that night for the poor old chap. But having said that, he's a champion. You know, he took his loss from it. So you know, he's taken the positives out of that situation.
After the fight, there was a lot of talk about, you know, did AJ get knocked out in sparring before he was he suffering with an injury, what have you? I'm not going to ask you about that, but we spoke about pressure earlier on that Benjamin could face. After the fight, you know, people were saying it was kind of like a weight was lifted off of Anthony's shoulders, that he lost his first fight. He wasn't looked at as this invincible man, so he could kind of feel relieved going into the rematch. Did you see that yourself? Did you see that maybe there was just a pressure off his shoulders now to just kind of enjoy his boxing a bit more because he's still seen as a global superstar?
Double-edged sword, because there was an incredible amount of pressure on him for the rematch. You know, there were so many people who were saying that it was impossible for him to make the adjustments that he would need to make. And, you know, I think that most people inside boxing thought that Ruiz would win again. And even the people who thought that AJ could win, they didn't believe that he was going to win in the fashion that he did, you know. So I think that he, okay, maybe there was a certain, but there was an added pressure on the line in the rematch, you know, and it, not in his mind, but in the mind of the media, in the mind of so many people. Not in his mind. He is a champion through and through. The guy he has an unbelievable spirit. He has an unbelievable competitive energy, and you know I can't say enough about him. He's a real true competitor, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be around him. It's a blessing to help prepare him, and you know I just think he's great for boxing. Full stop.
Let's talk about that fight out in Saudi then, the rematch. Obviously, your first full fight with AJ. What was your thoughts heading into it? Did you feel the pressure yourself for AJ to succeed?
Um, I mean, I just wanted AJ to do well. My whole concern was his health and him doing well as a person. You know, more so than a boxer, just him doing well as a person. And so I knew that he could. I knew that he could be successful. You know, I've said to AJ for a long time, with his work ethic, you know, he can improve in the short space of time. He can improve massively, and I knew that this was possible. You know, it wasn't something. Some people were saying, "Oh no, he's stiff," and people were saying he hasn't got the boxing IQ. Well, to me, he turned it all on its head. To me, he showed a vast improvement in his movement, in his grace, in his and in his boxing IQ. So you know, it only to me it only bodes well for the future.
Just talk about the weights. Obviously, a lot of people saying AJ's best weight is around 17 stone or just below. Obviously, he came in at the top end of 16 stone. Ruiz came in at over 20 stone, though. Everybody was very surprised by that. What was going through your thoughts and the team's thoughts when you heard Ruiz's weight?
Um, you know, at that point in the fight preparation, I wasn't bothered about the opponent. At that point in the preparation, I knew that AJ was ready to win. Um, the funny one was that there was a media workout, I think a day before or maybe 2 days before the weigh-in. And AJ didn't do much because we'd already trained a couple of hours before. So he got in the ring and it was kind of funny because he didn't really want to show any tactics. So he didn't want to move around too much, and he certainly didn't want to jab. So he ended up just doing a little bit of shadow boxing and getting out. And then Ruiz got in the ring, and Ruiz did about 10 to 15 minutes of a serious workout. And so many people, the atmosphere just totally changed. People were like, oh my gosh, Ruiz is a killer. We've forgotten how fast he is. We've forgotten how powerful he is. Look at the way he's closing down the space. Look at the way he's moving his head. And even AJ fans were getting petrified at this. And like I said, at that point in the preparation, I'd already seen enough from AJ to know that he was going to perform on the night. So I found it quite comical. And then, of course, it all got switched on its head when he weighed in. And you know, he weighed in the weight that he was. But in my opinion, um, the victory was more to do with what AJ did than what Ruiz didn't do. You know, so that's how it is.
What was going through your mind on fight night then, as the rounds were progressing, as you was watching Anthony in there with Andy trying to reclaim his belts? What was going through your mind? What did you make of AJ's performance?
Well, unfortunately, you can hear me shouting on the video, "Beautiful boxing." That was what was going through my mind. And I just wanted to remind AJ that you know, we had a game plan, and the game plan was to outmaneuver, was to kill the momentum of the opponent, and to you know, to build up a healthy lead on points. So you know, it was just a joy to watch that performance unfolding. You know, for me.
There were times in there when everybody could see, you know, AJ would get on him inside and he'd be tempted to look like he wanted to trade a bit more than what he did. Was that ever a worry for you? Was you ever thinking, like, back away, don't take the risk, because he had such a comfortable position?
Yep. Yeah, because Ruiz is an absolute killer if you are about 1 meter away from him. You know, he's the world champion of world champions within that 1 meter. So yeah, there was times where, and you know, again, it's in AJ. You know, some people are thinking that, you know, oh, is this how AJ's going to box now? And I say he can't box like that. It's not in him. You know, he's such a competitor. He wants to go for the kill all the time. You know, he wants to knock people out, and he wants to be entertaining, and he can't help it. You know, so I think, you know, it's fair play to him for having the discipline in that moment, especially when you bear in mind it was such a short amount of time to make those adjustments from the first performance to the next performance.
Sorry, Joby, obviously the video just freezing there. Fast forwarding from that victory in Saudi to the current time, everybody knew that the Pulev fight had been agreed and it was scheduled to be held at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How far along into preparations had you guys got until the fight was postponed?
Well, AJ basically, he had a holiday, I think, and he had a little bit of a rest, but then he just got straight back into training. And this is typical AJ. You know, he got straight back into training, got straight back into learning and developing himself. And we were doing some great preparation, and we were just about to go into camp when the lockdown happened. So that's how it was, unfortunately. I mean, who could believe that, you know, everything's got locked down the way that it has? But it's just how it goes.
Obviously, since then, everything got put on lockdown. Where's AJ at now? Well, what is AJ doing to kind of tick over?
AJ is using this lockdown just as a time for a bit of rest, and to, you know, to spend some time with his family and his son. And he's used it really productively. And then now, as the lockdown restrictions are starting to ease back up, you know, we're gonna start getting back to training within the guidelines. You know, he keeps himself fit. He eats incredibly healthy. You know, he's been on crazy bike rides, and he's still been running and doing his strength work. So he's blessed.
Are you guys kind of still doing like little things over for Zoom, for example, or you know, WhatsApp group, WhatsApp messages to kind of tell him how to keep himself at the best or the most productive as he can be at this moment in time?
Not really, no, not really, because he's been doing his own thing in his own time. And then, you know, last week I went down to see him, and we just did a little bit of shadow boxing outside and some strength work and that type of thing. And we're just going to carry on with that until we can get back in the gym.
Obviously, there was a lot of talk at this moment in time around that undisputed fight with Tyson Fury. Everybody would love to see two, especially in Britain, two Brits with the potential to win the undisputed heavyweight title. To your knowledge, is it all focus Kubrat Pulev, or is there a chance we could see that undisputed fight before, Fury Wilder 3 or Joshua Pulev?
I'm afraid I only know what the average man on the street knows. I'm afraid. I am preparing for Pulev at this moment. That's my focus, and I think that Pulev. I don't think that he would step aside, and I don't think that Deontay Wilder would step aside. Um, personally, I think that Pulev has worked hard to put himself back in this position, and if poor old Dillian White is anything to go by, if you're waiting in a queue, then you could be waiting for a long time. So personally, although it's early stages of coming out of lockdown, and we don't know when the fight necessarily is going to be, hopefully it's this year. I feel that it will be Pulev.
Going back to their second fight in Las Vegas, what was your thoughts on Tyson's victory?
I thought he did fantastic. In all honesty, I think he has thrown down the gauntlet to greatness between him and AJ to this generation. I felt that he made some amazing adjustments, and he is a very good fighter. And I think it's made life really interesting, and it can only fuel the preparation of a competitor like AJ now, to want to better himself and further himself, because I believe that the winner of that fight becomes mentioned with the greats. It might take a few more victories, but I believe that the winner of that fight becomes mentioned alongside the greats, and I think that is such a massive motivation, and I think that that's such a privileged position for those fighters to be in. How many fighters actually fight and can say that maybe in the next one or two fights that they could be considered a great? That's a very, very special place for these two young men to be in. So I was, as a fan, I was very impressed with Fury. As AJ's boxing coach, I wasn't that impressed. Joke.
Obviously, we saw what was a stunning performance from Tyson. Everybody, when you consider the three top heavyweights, AJ, Wilder, and Fury, they looked at AJ as the all-rounded, can do a bit of both, can bang, can box. Fury was seen as the best technical boxer, brilliant around the ring, and then Wilder was seen as the most destructive with that right hand, the most powerful. After that fight, we've seen Tyson stop Deontay, somebody who Tyson people wouldn't consider as being a knockout artist, wouldn't think he'd have power to do so. When you've seen him box away that he did against Deontay, how does that change, or how will it change your preparations to prepare against somebody like Tyson? Beforehand, you might have thought more about how to cope with his boxing ability. Now you've also got to consider his punching power and his ability to potentially stop his opponents now.
Mm-hmm. Fury has always shown himself to be a very versatile athlete. Sometimes he's just fought southpaw. Sometimes he's, the fight that he got badly cut, he had to go into mid-range and rough the guy up and break the guy down at mid-range. He's always shown himself to be a fantastically versatile athlete. But these are the challenges that you face when you want to be called a great. These are the levels that you have to raise to. And I talk strongly about the energy frequency of world class, for instance, and I say that greatness has its own energy frequency. The likes of Muhammad Ali and George Foreman and Joe Frazier, those guys, they functioned on a different level. And if you want to be mentioned in the same sentences as those guys, you have to function on a different level. and I believe that it will bring out the best in both Fury and AJ.
Joby, just a couple more questions before I do leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. I know I've taken up probably a lot longer than either of us would have thought we would have done, but it's been a privilege and a pleasure to kind of get to know you a bit more about your boxing background and other stuff as well. With boxing looking to return around the middle of July with behind closed door shows, what's been your thoughts on the British Boxing Board of Control's guidelines for what can and can't take place?
Well, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one when we want to bring boxing back in. The television must be screaming for boxing to come back because they have no content whatsoever. And I feel there are great opportunities for boxers. I feel that the boxers use this time to develop themselves. Even though they can't spar, they can still keep themselves in wonderful shape. They can still really work on their mindset, and when they come out of this, there are some boxers are going to become household names maybe that weren't household names before. So of course the tough one is that their preparation may well be hampered in that they might not be able to spar as regular or see their coaches as regular, which is a drawback. But they have to seize the moment. It'll be interesting to see which boxers seize the opportunities. And life is about momentum, and it's about opportunities and taking those opportunities when they present themselves. And I'm excited for it.
What do you think it's going to be like for a fighter to deal with no fans being there? A very different experience to what they'd have been used to for their career so far.
Very different to what they're used to in the professional ranks. In the amateur ranks, they're probably a little bit more used to it. They might have fought in a working men's club in Durham where there was 25 people at the bar, and they might have fought in a world championship semi-final where all there was coaches and other athletes. So if a boxer really wants to fight, they'll seize the opportunity. That's it. If a boxer really wants to further themselves, they'll take every positive that they possibly can out of this situation.
Final thing I want to get your thoughts on is Eddie Hearns come out, he said he wants to do a fight camp type thing in the back of a Matchroom HQ, setting up with the ring in the background in their garden. What's your thoughts on that, on Eddie's proposal of having fight camp in the Matchroom HQ?
Well, I think it's wonderful that we have these people who are just looking for ways to create something. It would be so easy to write off this year maybe, and some promoters unfortunately will have to write off this year, but we have these guys who are being so creative and looking for ways to keep the sport going and to ignite it back, and let's not forget that it was in a tremendously vibrant place. This whole Tyson Fury, AJ, and countless other boxers making it an incredibly vibrant time in boxing, and hopefully that with the ingenuity that people like Eddie Hearn have shown, that can come back quickly.
Joby, we will leave that there now. As I say, I've definitely taken a lot more time than of your day with what you'd have bargained for when I asked you if you could do an interview. But I appreciate you giving up some time and giving a bit more of a look into your life as a boxing coach and your other ventures so far. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you. Before I let you go, what would you like to say to everybody who tunes in to watch our interview?
Oh, I don't know, man. Just be kind to each other. Love your mum and dad. And give them a hug.
That's what I'll put there. I think I'm going to go give mine one after this. Joby, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social, and stay safe.
Peace and love.